Good morning, I am Songmi Paek, and I will be presenting my master's thesis titled A Study on Public Transit Accessibility using an extended G2SFCA model based on gross flow area. This study proposes a new integrated evaluation framework. It addresses the methodological limitation of existing accessibility assessments, which fail to reflect urban complexity. Specifically, it aims to identify the structural gap between scheduled accessibility and the realized accessibility that citizens actually experience. Here is the outline of my presentation. I will begin with the research background and objectives, followed by a review of the limitation in existing literature and the distinct contributions of this study. Next, I will explain the extended G2SFCA methodology and the data construction process. Finally, I will present the results from the Daejeon Metropolitan City case study and conclude with policy implications. Here is first the research background. As you can see, while the public transit modal share in Seoul capital area reaches 27% in non-metropolitan areas like Daejeon, it is only around 30% with car dependency exceeding 60%. This imbalance stems from a gap in service quality. Although non-metropolitan areas have a high proportion of elderly residents who rely heavily on public transit, dispatch intervals and wait times are significantly longer than in the capital. This leads to spatial inequality in transportation welfare beyond mere inconvenience. Therefore, to achieve sustainable urban mobility, a precise diagnosis of whether the current public transit supply meets actual demand is prerequisite. This study stems from three key motivations. First, there is a need for quantitative evidence to resolve the deepening regional disparity in public transit services. Second, existing accessibility assessments rely solely on GTFS, failing to reflect the realized experience of users, such as delays or congestion. Third, we must identify the discrepancy between the plan and reality to establish optimization strategies suitable for non-metropolitan cities. Therefore, this study aims to quantify the gap between scheduled accessibility and realized accessibility by integrating GTFS and smart car data. Through this, I aim to develop evidence-based solutions to improve public transit. Accessibility measurement methodologies have evolved from the gravity model to the 2SFCA and then the Gaussian 2SFCA, which continuously reflect the distance decay effect. This study is based on the G2SFCA model, but extends it to address methodological challenges that previous studies could not resolve. Previous studies generally face two methodological limitations. First is the single facility focus. Most studies using G2SFCA have limited their scope to specific single facilities, such as parks or hospitals. However, citizens' actual movements involve complex, multi-purpose trips, including work, medical care, and shopping. The main reason previous researchers failed to integrate multiple facility types was their inability to calculate a unified index because of different units of supply capacity, like bed count, student count, area. Second is the limitation of binary measurement. Approaches like the 50-minute city often use a specific threshold to classify accessibility as either 0 or 1. This logic implies that accessibility instantly disappears once the threshold is crossed. This underestimates accessibility in areas near the boundary and risks distorting the continuous service levels of urban space. To address these issues, this study presents three key methodological contributions. First, I introduced gross flow area GFA as a standardized indicator for integrating heterogeneous facilities. According to previous studies in architecture and urban planning, GFA has been effectively used to estimate population and employment sizes and has shown a strong correlation with the potential total service volume and capacity a facility can provide. Based on this academic foundation, this study used GFA as standard supply indicator to integrate diverse facility types. Second, I reflected on continuous time value. I applied the Gaussian decay function to continuously reflect the decline in utility as distance increases. Furthermore, I enhanced the analysis precision by calculating door-to-door travel times, including both working and in vehicle time. Third, I established a comparative diagnostic framework for plan versus reality. This study quantified the realization rate by directly comparing the potential supply plan with actual usage history within the same G2SFCA framework. This allows us to identify the structural gaps between schedule and reality that existing studies have not addressed. Let's move on to the research methodology. This is the overall analytical framework. I constructed demand data using a 250-meter grid population, supply data using the GFA of facilities, and network data using GTFS and smart card records. By integrating these, I calculated G2SFCA accessibility for three time periods: AM, MD, and PM. Then I performed statistical analysis and spatial analysis to verify the spatial relationship between the two indicators. The core of the data construction process was the integration of heterogeneous transit data. GTFS and smart card data used different stop ID systems, making direct linkage impossible. To solve this, I developed a matching algorithm combining string similarity and spatial proximity. Using the Hungarian algorithm, I determined the optimal pairs, achieving a 99% matching rate. This was an essential prerequisite for comparing schedule and real data on the same network. As you can see, before integration, stop location information was fragmented. However, after integration, it is precisely connected into a single unified network. This enables a perfect door-to-door path analysis, combining access, writing, and egress. Based on GTFS data, I constructed a direct graph reflecting the schedule operation between stops. This represents the ideal travel time, excluding external factors like traffic congestion. The core algorithm of this study, the G2SFCA model, is performed in two steps. Step 1 is calculating the supply to demand ratio. For each facility J, I sum the population reachable within the threshold time and divide the facility supply capacity by resulting competing population. This yields the supply level that accounts for the facility congestion. Step 2 is aggregating the accessibility index AI. For each residential location I sum the RJ value of all reachable facilities to derive the final accessibility index. Here's this distance decay function G is applied so that the contribution of a facility to accessibility decreases as the distance increases. I will explain the key value setting that determine the model's precision. First is the supply capacity calculation. The distribution of gross flow area, GFA, is highly right-skewed. Using raw data could lead to overestimating accessibility around large facilities. Therefore, I applied a natural logarithm transformation to the GFA. This normalizes the data distribution by preventing distortion from outliers and secures relative comparability between categories with different facility size. Second is the distance decay function. This study applied the Gaussian function. As shown in the graph, the weight is 1 at 0 minutes, then smoothly decreases to 0.4 at the 20 minutes threshold. This simulates the inelastic probability of travel occurring even beyond a specific time limit. To reflect the actual user experience, travel time was calculated using the door-to-door method. Specifically, for the OD data-based analysis, I used smart card records to calculate the average travel time of vehicles actually operated during each time period. This represents the empirical travel time reflecting actual road congestion and delays, not just the schedule. We applied this methodology to Daejeon metropolitan city. Daejeon is a polycentric city with a population of approximately 1.44 million. With a car model share exceeding 60% and rapid aging, it is optimal area for this study, as improving public transit accessibility for the transportation disadvantage is urgent. I will describe the data used for the analysis, dividing into demand and supply. First, the demand data. Based on the 250-meter grid population data from the NGII, I did not just use all areas with population. I specifically selected grids containing actual residence buildings as the analyst targets to increase the spatial precision of the resident population distribution. Next, the supply data. This was constructed based on the building register from the MONIT. I classified services into 5 categories: work, education, medical, shopping, and transport, covering citizen daily life. A total of 11,542 facilities were used as the final destination. Now I will present the analysis results. First, the comparison of descriptive statistics. The most notable point is the difference by time period. During the morning peak, the difference between scheduled and realized accessibility is minimal at -2.2%. This implies that buses operate relatively well according to the schedule during commute hours. However, during the off-peak midday, the gap widens significantly, -10.3%. This suggests that as dispatch intervals increase, that travel patterns become irregular during the day, the planned service level is not being fully realized. Does this mean GTFS data is meaningless? I need to verify this. The correlation analysis shows that the Spearman rank correlation coefficient represents over 0.9 across all 3 time periods. The data clusters tightly along the 1-to-1 line. This shows that while absolute values may differ, GTFS remains a valid and reliable indicator for predicting the relative accessibility rank between regions. To quantify this relationship, I performed a regression analysis to calculate the accessibility realization rate. The realization rate for the morning is 1, meaning the schedule perfect matches reality. However, it drops to 0.84 for the midday. This means only about 84% of the schedule accessibility is actually realized. This is interpreted as a limitation caused by longer headways and route systems' inability to accommodate diverse trip purposes during off-peak hours. The regression diagnostics also shows that during the AM period, residuals are almost non-existent and fit the line perfectly, whereas during the MD period, the data variance increases. To see how these accessibility gaps are distributed spatially, I analyzed Moranjai. The result shows a distinct positive spatial autocorrelation in the ratios for AM and PM MD periods. This means accessibility gaps are not random but are structurally clustered in specific areas. This suggests that a global model is insufficient and that a local analysis model such as GWR is needed. On the other hand, the PM period shows the results that were not statistically significant. This implies that during the evening rush hour, congestion or delays occur randomly across the city without being concentrated in specific area. So a global OLS model is sufficient to explain them. Therefore, this study applied geographically weighted regression, GWR, to improve the explanatory power for the AM and MD periods where spatial heterogeneity is evident. These are the GWR analysis results. First, looking at the model performance, compared to OLS, GWR showed only slight increase for AM and PM, but for midday, the explanatory power improved significantly from 0.84 to 0.91. This indicates a large deviation in accessibility realization rates among residential area during the day. Next is the pattern of regional realization rate. This map shows how well the scheduled accessibility is realized in actual uses for each residence. I will specifically explain the spatial reservoir phenomenon in the midday by constructing residential area. As you can see, the residential area in the west and east marked in purple show high coefficient. These are areas with dense, large-scale residential complexes. This implies that even during the day, the residents' demand for daily travel is supported, so scheduled accessibility is fully converted into realized accessibility. In contrast, the residential area in the north, marked in orange, show low coefficients, indicating poor realization. This area is a mix of industrial complexes and residences. Since the current bus schedule is optimized for commuter traffic to the industrial complex, but buses are still provided to nearby residences during the day when people work. However, a discrepancy arises with the actual travel demand of residents in that area, conforming a spatial supply-demand mismatch with a low realization rate. The LISA analysis results support this as well. The dense residential area in the west was identified as a broad LL cluster. This demonstrates structural inequality caused by rigid public transit operation that failed to keep pace with urban development and changing travel demands rather than a simple lack of bus routes. Finally, the conclusion and suggestions. To summarize the conclusion of this study, first, statistically, it was verified that GTFS secures validity as a planning indicator for predicting actual accessibility. Second, however, a distinct spatial mismatch was identified during the midday. While residential areas in the west and east showed high realization rates, those in the north near industrial complexes recorded low realization rates despite oversupply, revealing the inefficiency to commute-centered development. Therefore, this study proposes the following policy implication. Instead of uniformly reducing bus service during off-peak hours due to low ridership, a special resource relocation strategy is needed. This involves shifting surplus operational resources from northern industrial routes with low realization to residential and commercial areas in the west and east, where daily travel demand is active and realization rates are high. This study has limitations regarding time errors due to missing or early takeoffs in smart car data. Future research plans to improve precision by calculating accurate vehicle trajectories using bus operation API data and to expand the study to a multimodal integrated accessibility analysis, including the upcoming tram and existing subway systems. This concludes my presentation on diagnosing urban mobility gaps and by fusing schedule and reality data. Thank you for your attention.